So good afternoon. Maybe a short introduction. So my name is Guillaume. So I'm VP Product at a small company called Zeenea. So, Vice President. That's a good thing about being part of a small company, that you can have big titles. So I'm Vice President. I'm very happy to do that. Zeenea, we are building actually a smart data catalog. So what we're going to talk about today is why you want to have a data catalog in your company. The point is to leverage your data assets. This is the premise of the new data world, that you will turn your company into a data-centric company, and data-centric organization where you can use the data to innovate, to build new business, to make better decisions. And the thing is, it's not that easy to turn your company into what is now called a data democracy. Most of the time you have different data cultures, and your maturity level in your organization might not be to be a data democracy. What's data democracy? It's an organization where many people, everybody, hopefully, can actually use the data to make their decisions and to do some analysis, some data science, some decision making, some innovation. But this data democracy that requires a lot of control on your data, because the environment is very demanding. You have compliance, you have security issues, so you cannot just ask everybody to access the data. So there are different cultures. Hopefully you're not in the data anarchy zone where everybody can access the data, but there's no rule to govern how it can be accessed and used. And you're probably in one of the other areas, which are data aristocracy. Data aristocracy is not so bad. It's probably what happens when you have started a large data architecture with data lakes, and you have your data scientists, data analysts accessing this data and having quite a good knowledge of what's in there and using it for their expert activities. And then you have probably something which is older, which is what I call data monarchy or data dictatorship, which is mostly what you have in the financial reporting or the former BI world, where the data access and data control is reserved to a small set of people in the organization, mostly the people in the higher level in the hierarchy. This is not that bad a situation, but the problem is that, of course, you cannot leverage your data to innovate and make more global decision making. So data democracy is something you wish, but it's hard to reach it. Three big problems. The first one is that the knowledge is mostly tribal. Knowledge about the data is usually kept by the people that produce the data or use it directly. It's very difficult to share and spread in the organization because you have this high level of expertise that you need to actually understand the data and use it. And then you have the mess. Most organizations are old organizations. They did not start creating data in the last 2 years, or in the last 20, 30, 40 years. So you have data everywhere. And you have layers of storage, layers of systems, more or less siloed. We started big data projects in the last few years. Big data project was to remove silos and put the data into a large lake. But very often it just created a new kind of mess in a new place, which is a data lake. So it did not remove the mess, it just moved it to a new place, and it's more mess. So you have this mess, and of course you have the compliance. Depending on your activity, what you're doing, you have more or less compliance, but you have compliance. Of course, if you are an hospital, you have a lot of compliance. If you are a bank or insurance, you have still quite a lot of compliance. But if you are a general purpose organization, you also have compliance, GDPR or some over specialized compliance. You need to make sure you follow in your with your data usage. But we know that some organizations manage to be data democracies. So we took a few big names. Of course, you know them. Those are all not so old companies, but they are not that new either. And they are all data democracies. They use data everywhere in their decision making. They use data everywhere in their products, in their innovation. And one thing that is common to all those companies is that they all have a data catalog. They all started a data catalog a long time ago. Most of them, they actually built it in-house because, of course, they have a lot of resources to do so, but also because they know that the data catalog will be a cornerstone to the data democracy, because this is where you will share the information and you will spread it into the organization. On the other side, I've been working on big data projects for probably 16 years. So I've been seeing many different ways to approach this documentation issue. One of them, probably one of the worst one, was in this insurance company that needed to actually document all its data for compliance reasons. That's not really, actually that was for solvability to compliance. And they invested a lot of money to document everything. So they spent months having people documenting everything in their systems, modeling all the data, describing everything. It was very expensive, took a lot of time. And at the end of the day, the documentation was almost good, but it was not maintainable. So they spent all this money for documentation that was actually wrong 12 months later, because systems are moving, data is moving, and the documentation is outdated quite quickly. So back to what we want to achieve is actually to not to take a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach. Start with the truth. And the truth is what data you have in your actual system, in your operational system, in your storage. This is where we will start, and we will come scan all those storage, find the data, document it, and share it with everybody. What would be a bottom-up approach? Well, it's quite simple, actually. You have a discover phase that is actually automating the discovery of the data assets in all of your systems, whatever the system is, whatever the storage is, whatever the technology you are using to store and describe the data. So you have this discovery. And then you have probably a set of professionals that we call data stewards that will be working on making sure that all that has been grabbed in your system is properly documented. But they won't do it alone, but they will be helped by algorithms that will learn what kind of data you're using and will help them document them automatically. And once you've built that, you can open the system to business users that will actually use it as a search engine, so they can find, locate, and learn how to use different data, but also collaborate to enrich documentation with usage, warnings, and any relevant information that can be shared with other users and they think is valuable. So that's actually what we've been building at Zeenea. So our data catalog has four pillars. The first one is that it is an enterprise catalog. It's not just, you already have catalogs everywhere today. Most technologies, you come with the catalog. What we have is a catalog that will catalog all your assets, all your storage, not just in your data lake, not just in one of your BI system or your warehouse, but we will document everything everywhere. It's a connected catalog, so we will really connect your storage. To scan it, we have a set of robots that will grab the data and discover and update all the assets. So you can make sure that your catalog actually reflects what is in your operational systems. The catalog is smart. Well, it's not too dumb, actually. But the idea with smartness is that you want to automate everything. I come from a technical background. When you come from a technical background, you know that you don't like writing the documentation. The documentation is always the last thing you want to do. So you push it down the backlog, and usually you're late and you don't do it. So we know it's a pain. It's a pain to create documentation. So if you want a good documentation, you need to automate it as much as possible and help the people that are in charge of maintaining the documentation make sure that it's accurate. So we use algorithm and classical automation to help the data stewards and the data owners document and maintain the documentation on top of all the assets. And of course, it is a social catalog, meaning that everybody that is using the data can share their entire knowledge about the data. So you can have an even better documentation. An overview of the system, a very simple one. So you have all the connectors that will go on your storage. We have listed some of them. We have actually something like 40 or 50 connectors to all kind of technologies. Can be physical storage, can be warehouse, ETLs, APIs, any place you find assets that are available that you want to catalog to help people find them. So we connect to all these sources. We grab all the meta information, and we have this algorithm and automation that will populate the properties or notify the data stewards that there is something that is weird in the documentation or that require their attention, so they can actually check it and make sure that the information is correct. And of course, in the middle of the system is a search engine that will be used by end users to find the asset. Not only the asset, but all the information about the asset, and especially the information about how to use it. If there is some compliance or ethical restriction, security restriction that they need to comply to before they can use this data. A little bit more about the smart part. So most of the smartness relies on what we call data fingerprinting. So what we do is that we actually, while we scan the data storage, we also scan the data, so we can compute a set of features on top of the data. So we can build what we call a fingerprint. So that's more as data science on top of the data sets. So we have 30 or 35 computation that we make on the data. So we have a fingerprint, and with this fingerprint, we can use a deep learning algorithm to learn about the data, what's its meaning. We can relate some data sets to others in your system, detect links, detect duplicates, suggest documentation. So if you have some data that has already been documented, we can suggest that if we find another data set with the same fingerprint, we can suggest that it's probably the same information or the same kind of information, and help the data steward link this information to the right documentation. We also use event-based automation because, of course, you have these smart algorithms, but you also have some dumb algorithm that is just applying rules to document the information based on your internal standards. So that's something we can just do by creating scripts, and when you detect a data set, use its structure or its location or any information that is already present to build the documentation based on your internal rules. And of course, we will suggest for the end user, we will use several techniques to make it easier to use the catalogs. We have something we call the adaptive search engine. That means that the engine will learn what a user expects from the system. I will try to fine-tune the results of the search to his profile. So this is something that is similar to what Amazon is using in their own catalog. So they can suggest you what you are the most aware of or you most like. So this is a more or less same story. We are using the same kind of technology to try to improve the search results to fit the user profile, and of course recommendation and simple user interface to make it easy to use for the end users.